And next presentation will be on RiC-O ontology. We have two speakers about this topic. The first one is Florence Clavaud. The second, anyway, the program Florence is before you. Anyways, Florence Clavaud of the Archivio Nazionale de France. And the second one, but the first who speaks, is Salvatore Vassallo dell'Archivum Romanum Societatis Jesu, che parlerà in latino. Grazie.
Purtroppo poi ci posso provare, ma al di là di ad maiore dei gloria. Dunque, mi hanno chiesto di fare una presentazione in italiano e ne sono estremamente lieto. I'm sorry for our international guest, but as you can see, you will find the slide self-expressing. So, prima di tutto ho cercato di organizzare questa presentazione molto breve, poi lascerò la parola a Florence che entrerà più nel dettaglio dell'ontologia, quindi una presentazione molto più seria se volete, strutturandola secondo le regole, le 5W rules del giornalismo, in maniera tale da capire le linee generali di questo secondo prodotto della famiglia RiC, per poi entrare più nello specifico. Prima di tutto chi siamo è un sottogruppo di ICAR, piccolo ma ben agguerrito direi. Il leader del team è appunto Florence Clavaud. Abbiamo con noi per fortuna Daniel Titti, che avete sentito prima come chair di ICAR, ma che conoscevate già ben tutti. Pete Johnston purtroppo non è più parte del gruppo, voi lo conoscevate per il progetto LOCA, e infine Aaron Rubenstein, uno dei primi a sviluppare un'ontologia archivistica, poi ci sono anch'io. Quando parlo dell'ontologia prodotta da RiC uso spesso questa immagine delle due torri tratta dal Signore degli Anelli, Mordor contro Isengard, o per essere più precisi me lo sono anche appuntato perché se no poi mi scriverà qualcuno più nerd di me, dice non sai neanche qual è il Signore degli Anelli, Barad-dûr contro Orthanc, dice no, torna a lavorare per i critiche, neanche questo sai. Qual era il problema? Il problema è stato evidenziato da Daniel nella sua introduzione, ma anche da Kate nel presentare i vari commenti, è che per un certo periodo, diciamo, Mordor, ovvero l'ontologia in questo senso, con il suo occhio di Sauron aveva un po' traviato il modello concettuale che ha utilizzato anche dal punto di vista terminologico elementi invece che sono tipici del mondo dell'ontologia. Devo dire che anche in questi 3 giorni impegnativi che sono passati, ormai la separazione è giustamente netta e ci saranno 2 prodotti ben distinti, un modello concettuale anche con una terminologia un po' più chiara e sicuramente diversa, e poi questa ontologia che è, diciamo, una traduzione di questo modello concettuale. Ma in parole pratiche che cos'è un'ontologia? So che molti di voi lo sanno meglio di me, ma 2 parole sull'ontologia. Lo sapete, l'ontologia è una specificazione formale ed esplicita di una concettualizzazione condivisa. Questa era la definizione Gruber del 1997, se non ricordo male, che gli studenti quando insegnavo all'università mi ripetevano, tipo raccontiamo la poesia a memoria al nonno così poi ci dai 10 euro per il gelato. Ed io ero contento. Ma nella pratica che cos'è? Noi cosa facciamo? Utilizzando un linguaggio formale, nello specifico AUL, traduciamo il modello concettuale RiC-CM in classi organizzate in una loro gerarchia, che poi Florence mostrerà, e proprietà che descrivono queste classi e le collegano. Perché lo facciamo? E questa è una bella domanda. Perché lo facciamo? Uno dei motivi ovviamente è colpa sua, John Tim Berners-Lee, che con la sua visione ci spinge a questo, no? Questo sogno di un web in cui le macchine sono in grado di analizzare i dati, parlare fra di loro, lui dice addirittura per migliorare la daily life, nel nostro caso ci accontenteremo di migliorare la ricerca archivistica, sì, sarebbe già sufficiente. Vi chiederete, molti lo sanno, questa visione di quando è del 2016, perché mi sembra molto attuale, o del 2010, no, è del 2000, perché noi andiamo avanti ma lentamente, quindi anche questo, quando parliamo di web 2.0, web 3.0, forse più web 0.20 adesso, perché pian piano ci arriviamo, ma sicuramente molto lentamente. Ma qualcuno può dire, sì vabbè, se ci dobbiamo scambiare i dati, confrontarli eccetera, non potevamo usare il buon, sano e vecchio EAD, di cui peraltro qui abbiamo l'onore di avere il suo padre originale, come ci ricorda Boromir, quando vi ricordate, dice, uno non facilmente entra, one does not simply walking into Mordor, una cosa del genere. Non è proprio così semplice usare EAD per scambiare i dati. Perché? Perché AD nasce per tutt'altro, poi è stato talmente, forse aveva talmente in sé qualità positive da poter essere utilizzato anche in altre situazioni, però è come quando il chirurgo di frontiera si trova a operare con la sega, forse è meglio utilizzare un bisturi in alcuni casi. Ma ancora questo non risponde alla domanda perché. Mi verrebbe da citare, in alcune occasioni l'ho fatto, lo sketch di Guzzanti sull'aborigeno. Molti di voi forse non lo conoscono, se no cercate su Google Guzzanti aborigeno e in 20 secondi vi spiega il semantic web applicato al mondo degli archivi. Però effettivamente questo, dobbiamo trovare delle motivazioni che siano oltre il poterlo fare. Lo possiamo fare, ma perché? Allora mi è venuto in mente così le varie leggi di Ranganata, e ho detto ma come mai l'avranno sicuramente già qualcuno applicato al mondo degli archivi, è impossibile. Ho cercato in rete le 5 leggi di Ranganata che sono contento di citare perché pensavo che il professor Westman che interverrà il pomeriggio fosse già qui per fargli vedere che a lezione io ero attento, non interviene. Avevo fatto apposta questa slide per dimostrargli che quando all'università ero un suo allievo ero attento. No, mi sono chiesto perché non applicarla al mondo degli archivi, ma sicuramente l'avrà fatto qualcuno. Ho cercato in rete, voi sapete che non è vero che se non esiste su Google non esiste altrove, però almeno su Google non l'ho trovato, ho trovato le 5 leggi di Ranganata applicate a qualunque cosa, al web, c'è un articolo del 2004, applicate anche all'idraulico tra un po', ma non applicate agli archivi. Ci sarebbe da chiedersi perché è talmente ovvio per noi o forse perché non ci riporta nulla dell'utente, non lo so, una delle due probabilmente, un mix tra questo. Però diciamo che una motivazione forte, ma dobbiamo creare dei casi di uso interessanti e mi spiace che non siamo riusciti a trovare un adattatore idoneo perché sennò Florence qualche versione beta di casi d'uso poteva mostrarlo, bisogna comunque trovarlo. Passato il perché passiamo al come vogliamo sviluppare questa ontologia, sostanzialmente reinventando la ruota. Alcuni dei commenti che ha sintetizzato Cat lo mettevano in evidenza, ma ci sono altri modelli, altre ontologie. Con questa slide non voglio dire che noi non li consideriamo minimamente, li abbiamo letti, studiati, interpretati, cercati di aggregare tutti, vi è una lunga lista che forse questo vale per noi ma vale anche per RiC-CM, va esplicitata meglio per far vedere che non sono concetti che piovono dall'alto, ma in una prima fase per essere sicuri che effettivamente si riesca a rappresentare quello che è il modello concettuale in maniera corretta, si preferisce utilizzare, come dire, un lessico nuovo, una nuova struttura mediale. In una seconda fase, almeno per l'entità principale, potrebbe essere per esempio che per le date si vada già direttamente in questa fase a confluire su ontologie già strutturate e diffuse. In una seconda fase poi ovviamente si farà una mappatura con l'esistenza e laddove siano totalmente identici si potrebbe addirittura scegliere di utilizzare quella o comunque ci sarà un meccanismo per rendere interoperabili. E qua chiudo per il momento, sono stato rapidissimo, con la domanda, una delle 5 W che interessano a molti dei presenti qua, ovvero quando ci sarà questa ontologia, perché uno dice, ma eravamo venuti a Roma nel 2016 e metà delle slide erano uguali, ne ha aggiunte qualcuna caruccia, però metà delle slide erano le stesse quando viene rilasciata questa ontologia, ma per aumentare la suspense e per tenervi tutti inchiodati alla sede durante l'intervento di Florence, ve lo dico dopo.
Grazie per adesso. Questo ottimo latinorum. Is Florence.
Buongiorno. This will be my only word in Italian, I'm afraid so I also apologize for switching to English and probably also to less funny and more technical details. I try not to be too long and not to bore you. What I want to do here is first present the main design principles of the ontology we are building. Then we have a look at the ontology itself. And third, I would like to give some details about some projects already using the ontology. I mean, mainly one project. So first, the design principles. This is, to be said in a few words, the global framework within we want the ontology to stay, or we can also say, for now, this is the quality criteria that we want it to have in the end. I don't mean, of course, that we just will evaluate it through this criteria. Of course, we will have to be more and more accurate and checking it. I mean, checking semantics, logics, checking its consistency, mainly checking that it reflects the archival world we want to describe, checking that it is complete, etc., etc. We have several methods for doing this. At least today, the current technologies provide several methods, including tests. But this is a global framework. And maybe you will think, oh, it's quite obvious what she is saying. I mean, domain, useful, functional, flexible, extensible. Yes, in a way, but it's also quite a challenge. So I take a few minutes to explain what I mean. First, and it's not surprising, of course, we want a domain ontology, just like the conceptual model. It will try to encompass the objects and which are in the archival world and their properties, and only this, but also all of this. So it is about consistency. I mean, providing something that is correct according to the real world he wants to describe, to define, and about completeness too. It's also about somewhat independency. What I mean is we will not design in this reuse any part of another ontology. Of course, I don't mean that doesn't exist any other ontology, mainly for cultural heritage. We also have other ontologies, and we also have ontologies existing for some closed domains. For example, there is an ontology for describing provenance as concerns the activities and what they result in, and of course it's quite close to our provenance notion. But there is currently no generic global ontology for the archival world, and we want to fill in this gap. And for doing it, we don't want to borrow any part of another ontology for two reasons, mainly. The main one is these other ontologies don't describe the archival domain. They have there are overlaps, but the perspective is not the same. The other one is more practical. We don't want the users of the ontology to be compelled to continuously look at what happens with the ontologies from which we would have borrowed something. You know, it could be quite difficult to maintain such a hybrid ontology. And we also want something that the archivists, I mean, people who may not have technical skills in this domain, be able to understand it and not be compelled to have a full knowledge of other technical models. So this is our definition of domain ontology. The two next principles may be considered obvious, yet they are fundamental. The ontology must be useful or usable. Of course, we can imagine in the future that in some projects or institutions, people will have authoring tools that directly enable them to produce data conforming to this ontology. For now, it's not quite possible, but the main challenge for now would be not to create a breach. I mean, enabling our existing archival metadata, for example, our finding aids or authority files or vocabularies, to be represented, to be converted into this new syntax and design without losing any of their content and semantics, and including what is quite implicit in the finding aids, for example. What I mean is, if the finding aid is conforming to ICG, you have this principle of level description at several levels, and you don't repeat information. And you have to go from the general to the specific levels. And you introduce a hierarchy, and it's the same in EAD. It is the XML structure that represents the hierarchy. It's just the XML structure. We don't want to lose this. We want to express it explicitly. The other example for finding aids is the sequence. When you write a finding aid, you organize it logically. If you describe the series number 1 before the series number 2, you have your reasons. You know it's logical, or you conform to your national or local rules, and this creates a sequence. So we want to keep this sequence in the new RDF world, which is not so easy. I won't elaborate on this, but it's quite a challenge. So we want something that can be usable. We also want something that can be functional. It's quite a key point. What I mean is enabling people that will handle or use this data to query, retrieve, gather, and display the information they want. And maybe discover information they didn't have or they didn't know they would have. This is functional requirements. Why is it so? It may be obvious for you, but why is it? What is the point here? The point is, for reaching this target, we will need to include user experience in our work. I mean, we have to when we release the ontology, to call for people who want to test, want to see what questions would you like to answer using this data. And it's quite important that we will be able to provide ways for answering these questions or these new or maybe actual but maybe future uses is quite important and quite difficult. The next two principles are also key ones. Flexibility could also be considered as a global generic target for any ontology here. It has a special importance. Why? Because by essence, archival description is flexible. What I mean is, if you have to describe a huge quantity of contemporary series, probably like everywhere in the world, you will just describe sub-series or files and stop, because you don't have time, and also because the series contain files that are whose content is close to the next file, and you can summarize easily what the file contains. When it comes to, for example, a collection of medieval charters, usually you go into a lot of detail and go to the ETN level, the record level in CM. It may happen that in the same institution or in the same file in A, it exists, we have this variation of granularity. It's quite frequent. Same for describing producers or persons or institutions that are related to records. Maybe you don't have many information on them, maybe you don't have time, maybe it's not quite important for you in your project, or on the contrary, maybe it's really important and you will take time and you have information and you will produce very rich data for a person or an institution. This is the way we work. And the ontology must address all these possibilities and so provide quite vague categories of objects to be able to be simple, and also provide more complex paths. And of course, the complex paths should be related to the simpler ones. I mean, this is flexibility, and it's by essence how we work, and it's quite important for us. The next and last principle is extensibility. It's quite common also in the world of ontologies. We mean here that it should be easy to adapt the ontology. It will be made a generic one. It will not address any specific project. Maybe you will need to add something in it for your project, and you must be able to do it without deleting everything. So it's about building consistent hierarchies, allowing to have logic in inheritance and be able to add something easily. And you also have the other side. I mean, for example, you are a digital humanities center, and you want to study the history of a group of people or of a period, and for this you have to search records, and maybe you will be interested in using our technical model. You should be able to do it, which means that in the ontology we have to come to also higher level abstract objects to be able to make connections to other models, and to provide hooks. I mean, be able to connect other ontologies to our ontologies. It's also about modularity. Maybe the last version of the ontology will be modular. I mean, cut in several files. This is what I would like to say about principles. Just about extensibility. One key method to reach extensibility is also to build mapping means. I mean, analyze the other close ontologies and say, okay, in SciDoc CRM we have activity, and this activity class is the same after an accurate analysis as our activity class. So we say in the ontology it's an equivalent class, so that maybe the users of CRM may also be able to reuse a part of our ontology. So this is in short a list of some ontologies we plan to align with, if it is correct to align. It's not exhaustive, just to give you an idea. Next, let's have a look at the files. I'm sorry, I cannot make a demonstration. I would rather have be possible for you, but I cannot, so it will be static. Sorry for that. First, the ontology files this is files, basically, and this is XML files conforming to some language, free languages. We use very popular software for doing this, which is Protégé. And we, for now, use also a private Git repository, which we plan to open maybe next year. I don't exactly know when. For now, in fact, as a matter of fact, we already have two files. One is the main one that includes the definition of classes and properties. And the other one is vocabulary for rigid set types. I mean, that we considered it was our responsibility to provide this, while for other categories of objects, we consider that probably as they exist already out of our domain, it's not our duty to provide this, but for rigid set types especially, we define the vocabulary, and the vocabulary is imported by the first file and allows you to say, for example, a rigid set is a font. This is a font, or this is a file, or this is a collection, etc. The ontology also already has a URI. I will switch. I will not say a lot on this. And it's documented in English, or at least will be documented in English when we release it as a beta version. Everything we already have had will be documented. I mean, you have definition of everything and English labels for classes and properties. This is to the right how you can see the ontology files if you have an XML authoring software, and this is probably how what the ontology will look like for a human reader when we release it. I mean, it will be HTML pages that you can read and browse to see how we have defined a rigid class, what is this property, or etc. etc. Of course, it will be human readable also. It's not only for machines. This is where I was thinking making a demonstration. So it's not a demonstration. Sorry. This is a screenshot of Protégé showing a perspective on the ontology, and here it's the hierarchies of classes. It's the current hierarchies of class. I would like to insist on this. It's quite unstable for the moment. Till January, we have a lot of work to do. So I will not here begin to describe every class and say, okay, it is defined, and we are certain it will stay as it is. It's not the case at all. I just want to emphasize some features. Of course, every RiC-CM entity here becomes a class. It's the classic transposition. And for example, rigid is a class, rigid set is a class, etc. But other things have become a class here. and mainly all the attributes or properties that are defined in the conceptual model and has no text as data type. I mean, for example, a term in an authoritative list or a concept in a vocabulary, something that can be shared. Every of these things becomes a class here. Plus, we add a lot of other classes because we want to reach a finer level of granularity. Because the RDF principle is to build three component simple phrases, you know, a subject, a verb, and an object. Everything in RDF is expressed like this. So and the subject, the verb, and the objects are identified uniquely. So you can handle and query this very, very accurately. So we want to reach a finer level of granularity. So you have more subclasses, and you also have more upper classes. As I said, it's also because we want to be the ontology to be reused in other contexts. So, for example, for name, which is a class here, we have name part, a part of a name. These are not the same classes; these are disjoint. For RiC set, we have a set because we want to. What we want to say here is, in the archival work, you don't only handle RiC sets. Maybe you will be facing other types of sets. And so we have a class set, and the RiC set is a subclass of the set. And you also say the polyhierarchical feature of the ontology is classical too. For example, RiC set is a subclass of set, and it's also a subclass of archival resource, even if you cannot see here. Sorry, I cannot browse it, it's just an image. This is a class hierarchy. We also have a hierarchy for properties. Properties in an ontology is about the attributes of things. So you will have a property in the ontology for any property of the model that is not a class. And you also have properties in the ontology for relations in the conceptual model. This is, a shift in the vocabulary and in the way of organizing everything and defining everything. And the properties are organized also in hierarchy, which I cannot show you here, sorry. About relations in the conceptual model, some of the relations we defined, and especially the relations between two entities. For example, an agent, a person, being a member of a group. This is this kind of relations, the relations between, will be represented as classes in the ontology, because we want to be able to say the relation has a date, maybe a beginning date and an end date. It has a certainty. We know it's certain, or we don't know exactly. It has a description, and so on and so on. Like if you know CPF, like in the CPF relation element. This is, I will come back to the previous one, but this is a current hierarchy of the relation classes is in the ontology. And it's not only a hierarchy, of course. You have here a prose definition and here a formal definition. And the relation classes have properties of their own. The generic one have vague properties. And the more you go down this hierarchy, the more the properties are accurate, and the lower level inherits the property of the upper level, so it's quite complex work. This is a list of some issues on which we have worked or are working. Maybe I won't be long on this. What I want to say is basically we have a lot of work to do. We have already done a lot of work, but we also have still a lot of work to do. And till our first release too, but after our first release, of course, because our first release will be incomplete. I just want to emphasize, to give some details about some projects, mainly one, but there are also other projects that are already testing the ontology, which is very important for us because we can use the results of the tests for improving the ontology and also guarantee that it is possible to use it, you know, so it's the question of usability. I am leading this project, which will be finished in the end of this year, so it's quite finished. We decided we wanted to do a proof of concept. I mean, it was not possible at all to take all the metadata that National Archives of France have built. We have 25,000 of finding aids. It's not possible. We wanted to just to check three things. First, you can from existing archival metadata, I mean real ones, not some that we should have built for the target. Real metadata, we can convert them into RDF conforming to this ontology. It is possible. First idea. Second, we can use the resulting RDF triples to connect metadata to other sets of metadata. And that's why in the project, three institutions were partners, are partners. You have Archives Nationales de France, Ministry of Culture, and the French National Library. And third target, we can build interfaces that show this metadata in quite innovative ways. I mean, show the graphs, because in our information system online, for the moment, we have already networks of information, but these networks aren't displayed because it's difficult for this technology to display them. So we would like to prove that with RDF data you can display it and visualize this as a graph. So this is our target. For the moment, I cannot show you the interface because we are building it with a small private company, but we can show it. We will publish the interface at the end of the year or in January. What I can say is we did the conversion for these small sets of metadata, and it works. And our strategy was to test the ontology thoroughly. I mean, we didn't test everything, we didn't need everything. Usually, you won't need everything in the model of the ontology. But we wanted to test it as far as possible and to get an idea of if it is possible to do it. What are the issues we have to solve if we want to go further and, for example, transform all the metadata coming from the National Archives of France to RDF? To what things do we have to be careful? And that, of course, there are some issues. So the project will release an interface, release the scripts written to convert the files. I did the scripts and I can guarantee it works. And also, and mainly detailed reports. Just want to show you something. I don't know if you can read it. No, you cannot. So, please imagine it is an ESCCPF file in this metadata set. We chose this file about a person. It is Jean-Noël Jeannonnet, who was the head of the French National Library from 2000 to 2022 to 27, and also the head of Radio France, which is a French broadcast company. And Jean-Noël Jeannonnet's public records as the head of Radio France are kept in the National Archives of France. So we have an authority file on Jean-Noël Jeannonnet, and we have a finding for these records. And of course, the French National Library also has an authority file on Jean-Noël Jeannonnet, another one, because Jean-Noël Jeannonnet was the director of the French Library and left some records there, and also because Jean-Noël Jeannonnet wrote a lot of books and articles, and so the French National Library keeps these works. So this is a ESCCPF file made by the National Archives of France. What I wanted to show is, in an ESCCPF file, of course, you describe an entity, primary entity, the person concerned here, Jean-Noël Jeannonnet, but you also have some information on its name, on the corporate bodies here, French National Library and Radio France, within which he worked. You also have a description of two relations. In fact, you have many more relations in the file, but I did an extract. You have an indication of the position the person had, and you also have an archival provenance relation to a record set. Here the records created by Jeannonnet as a head of Radio France. So with one ESCCPF file, you can build RDF triples, describing several resources, from one to many. It becomes multidimensional. So this is what you. It's not the RDF text representation. It's a graph obtained from this file after it has been converted into RDF. Here, the nodes, the surrounding nodes are entities, and the square ones are literal, textual values. And of course, the arcs bear the names of the relations, the properties we say in ontology. This is an example. For technical geeks here, I don't know, we have here a screenshot from the RDF XML representation of Jean-Noël Jeannonnet in the French National Library and the RDF representation of Jean-Noël Jeannonnet in the National Archives of France. And in these two representations, you have an information, a key information, which is Jean-Noël Jeannonnet has an ISNI, and this ISNI is unique. So this is how we can say, infer, with RDF, we can say if a person has an ISNI, if person A has an ISNI, and if person B has the same ISNI, then the two persons are the same. This is a quite simple inference rule, but this allowed us in the project to connect these files. And of course, what the French National Library knows about Jeannonnet is not exactly the same as what we know in the National Archives, so we can enrich each of these descriptions. And also, of course, for the user, build a network and be able to say, okay, this is the same, so I will provide you a link, and you can go from one to another one, and of course then go to the records, the description of the records the person created, etc., etc. This is just to let you know what it will look like, but it's not finished. The company has a lot of work to do yet, so I don't want to... anyway, I wouldn't have shown it to you, I mean, in live demo, because I don't like it very much. This is just, I wanted to show it's real. I mean, it's not, it's possible to use such techniques for our metadata. Other projects also will probably use very soon RiC-O. I will quote, of course, the SNAP cooperative project. You have, Damien Pété is the leader of this project. I think many people here know what I am talking about. Maybe if you want to ask him questions, he can answer better than me, of course. This SNAP cooperative is a huge project that will try both to aggregate data on persons, institutions coming from 30 institutions around the world, and to build something that the governance of it, so that it can be sustainable and have and pass years. I will come back to European project. We met in Paris. I met with my colleagues in Paris. Swiss team. In fact, the Swiss Federal Archives, after having conducted a proof of concept, which is quite close to ours in France, but didn't use RiC-O, they made their specific ontology for this. They now have decided to build a system where they will put every metadata they have. And it's not only the Swiss Federal Archives, but some other archival institutions in Switzerland. And the proof concept, you can see it online, is it's not conforming to RiC-O, but for the next step, the Swiss Federal Archives would like to use RiC-O, and the project has already begun. We also have in France, it's interesting because it's about digital archiving, three local institutions, public institutions, including the city of Bordeaux, to the south of France, that have built digital archival system. Digital archiving, system. In France we say SAE, Système d'archivage électronique. And for this system, they have decided to create and to build authority files for not only for the creators but for any agent involved in the process, and also for files, for items, for many other things. And for this, they have developed their own ontology, but they want to align it to RiC-O. So they will use RiC-O quite soon. This is what I've done. I hope you have understood something.
No, eravamo rimasti qua allo zio Sam perché effettivamente questa ontologia si sta facendo aspettare molto, ma come tutte le belle ragazze si spera. Quante solite ho preso nella mia vita, ragazzi, speriamo di non fare la stessa fine qua. Daniel ha detto all'inizio del 2018 noi ci vogliamo spingere a precisare un po' meglio, a fine gennaio purtroppo la forma sarà quella di una beta privata. Sapete che chi ha lavorato con me, con Archivista eccetera, non è il mio modo preferito di sviluppo, ma non si può fare diversamente, perché se dovessero arrivare lo stesso numero di commenti che c'è stato per RiC-CM, noi non abbiamo neanche nel nostro gruppo qualcuno come Cat che ci possa aiutare a sintetizzarli, e quindi magari poi non viene nessuno, già in sala non ne vedo 2 o 3 che vorrei, se loro sono disponibili, coinvolgere, ma quindi ci sarà una call for volunteering alla fine di gennaio per iniziare a utilizzarlo, chi può ovviamente su piccoli progetti, e quindi come, e qui lo chiudo, per RiC-CM c'è stato l'aiuto della comunità e non si può che ringraziarla, anche per RiC-O chiederemo l'aiuto della comunità e poi la ringraziamo, ovviamente le facciamo una lira perché soldi non crescono. Grazie.
Thank you very much.